and welcome back to At Home in Bethel Park. My name is Judy Scheidler, and today we have Evan Ivanovich from the Landscaping Center by Ivanovich. Did I say that right?
You did.
Okay. And spring's here, and we're all anxious to shake off the winter, get outside, and get our houses and our yards back in shape. And Evan's going to give us some tremendous ideas. First of all, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I have a business that's been in Bethel Park. We've been open for 30 years now. It's the Landscape Center by Ivanovich. We're behind the Kudla's gas station and Kogo's. And we've just developed a little new concept in landscaping compared to a lot of what you see in the South Hills. I am also a Penn State graduate from 1985 and have a degree in horticulture.
Well, the Penn State graduate, that's where my husband graduated, so I'm kind of fond of Penn State. My oldest son was born up there. The Landscape Center looks at landscaping a little bit differently, and we know you have a lot of questions about lawn and that. We'll get to that in a little bit. I wanted you to hear a little bit about what Evan and his company have to offer so you see the possibilities.
In developing a landscape, I do things a little bit different, and I'll do library seminars. And if you can just picture for a second that you have a picture at your house and it's unframed. Your picture is your home, and you bought the picture because you like the picture, but when it's unframed, your eye tends to run to the edges and then run back off the edges, off to the corners. Whenever you frame that picture, your eye tends to be drawn out and then drawn back into the middle, and by giving that picture the matting, it creates a further illusion of three-dimension. I've taken that concept into landscaping, and that's how you create the frames in your bed for your landscape. Then to create the actual plant material, I want you for a moment to think of living room or family room furniture. You can go to Ethan Allen and buy $15,000 worth of furniture and knickknacks and the like, and the room looks absolutely gorgeous. The kids or grandkids come in and spill a cup of Kool-Aid 5 feet from where the coffee table is. Now you move the coffee table 5 feet to hide the stain, and it throws the whole room out of balance with the same material that was in the room. Now you turn around, everybody inside would clean the stain and put the coffee table back. People outside tend to look at it for a little bit, scratch their head, go, this doesn't quite look right, and I'm not sure why, and then they go back and buy another lamp or plant, i.e., and stick it on top of the coffee table right where it is, and it kind of becomes a cluttered situation. So I'm going to go over and show you some pictures and then show you how you're framing a landscape.
Sorry about that, folks. That was my bad.
So when you're looking at this house, and this is up in Grandview Farms in Bethel Park, you have a house that has a lot of driveway and a governor's driveway. Look at how I've managed to soften all the concrete and bring your eye still to the front door. Here's a home over in Upper St. Clair, and when you're looking at the picture again, you're elongating the picture and coming up the driveway. See how the driveway becomes soft, and then it brings your eye back into the front door.
That's very clever.
Here, a lot of people will turn around and talk to me about power boxes and such, and boy, I have this big power box in my backyard or front yard, and I want to hide it. Well, a lot of people will go put 5 of the biggest plants you could ever find or grasses around your power box. You're now bringing your eye to an area that you don't want your eye to look at to begin with. So what I'm trying to do is incorporate the power box into the landscape, but kind of have it disappear in plain sight to refocus your eye back into the landscape, as you can see here how it's going back to the front door.
Yeah. Very good. And you're absolutely right, because whenever you're driving down the street and you see that big clump of bushes in the front yard, you know that there's an electric box behind it.
This was a job that we did over by South Hills Country Club, and all you had was the big tree here and the ground cover on the ground. And you can see how that just kind of lengthens the whole house, brings it back in, and frames your eye back to the veranda. So from every single view, the landscape should look nice.
Yeah.
There's a close-up of the waterfall.
Yeah, the water features are lovely too. How hard are they to maintain?
I tend to do them to where we're actually creating dry waterfalls, to where you have a waterfall in a self-contained unit, and then we'll build a pond underneath it with the rock formations in the front, and then actually fill the waterfall part or the reserve back up with rocks. So you have a self-filtrating system, so there's no freestanding water there, and at that point there's very little to no maintenance other than occasionally, maybe once every 2 or 3 weeks, just topping off the waterfall. If you get into an open pond with plants and such, that's a whole nother animal. It's a very nice effect, but you need to be a hobbyist to do that, because if you've ever had a big fish tank, it's 3 times more work to maintain that than it would be to maintain the fish tank.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I can't do fish tanks. They die.
And I'm just going to walk you through one landscape that we did here before I have Judy ask me some questions. Now, when you're creating a landscape, look how at this landscape, how your eye tends to run off the bottom of the hillside and through the neighborhood.
We have this a lot in Pittsburgh. We have hillsides. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, here, look how you have your close-up of your area. There it is when we cleaned it up and built the rock formation. Mm-hmm. There it is when the plants were put into it, the lawn. And now look at how the beds and the grass area accept each other. So you have the beds, the grass area, and the pool, and they all look like they're interlocking with each other. So they're just not random shapes that are put out there. They're there to create your eye to go somewhere. Now here you have a situation where you have a fence with the pool, and most people would put straight lines in there to where I don't want to look at my neighbor. Look at how I followed the line of the pool and bring that into it so it actually softens the area. This is coming up from the driveway, how the garden pathway kind of brings your eye up and around. Now again, whenever you're looking at the whole picture, when I'm talking about creating an environment, there's your before, and you have a very stark area. You have 6 feet of level before you drop off over a hillside. Now it looks like you've created your very own little paradise to live in and swim in.
Yeah, that's a very remarkable transition. And I suppose the price of something, the cost of something depends on the homeowner's budget. The sky's the limit, or you can do modest projects, or, you know.
We do everything between moderate to very high-end projects as far as that goes, and it's more based on the amount of space that you want to take up than it is the size of your actual home, because it deals with the size of the lot that you own.
Yeah. Are there restrictions, local restrictions regarding landscaping? I mean, you know, we can't put sheds so close to a property line. Do they have?
No, there's no ordinances or permits that you need to do landscaping unless you're building some type of permanent hardscape.
Which would be
if you're
new
building,
patio,
if you're building
or
not even so much a Versalock patio or patios. It's more if you're going over walls of a certain height, and if you're putting in fences or decking.
Okay. Okay, so pretty much there may be some permits involved because of fencing involved, and especially in that one that you had, that was lovely, the one you showed us. But other than that, it's, you know, you go in and you just create with the homeowner, and
correct, it's fun.
The government stays out of your way.
Yes, you get to be a big kid and play with Tonka toys as an adult.
That is fun. That sounds like a lot of fun. Now, I've seen some of your work around Bethel Park, and it's very, very nice.
We've also done where the Veterans Memorial is in front of the municipality building.
Oh.
So.
Okay, so you're done something very close to where we're sitting right now. Very nice, very nice.
As far as the lawn and garden center end of it, we have 2.5 acres behind the Bethel Park Car Wash and the Kula's gas station. And there are probably close to $750,000 worth of plant material back there, and we carry fountains and gifts and all kind of other lawn accessories.
I got a frog fountain there a few years back. It real cute. I still have it, actually, as a matter of fact. But your landscaping ideas are wonderful, and of course we'll give everybody your contact information throughout the show and at the end of the show, and you can find it on At Home in Bethel Park too. And now I'm going to switch gears for just a second, for a little while actually, and we're going to talk maybe about a few things that homeowners can do themselves that you can help them with. One of the things I was reading about is homeowners often have problems with their lawns because they don't know exactly what kind of dirt they do. Do you believe that pH testing and that kind of testing for soil is beneficial, and how expensive is it?
pH testing is really not that expensive. You can even get a kit from Penn State and send that up there to do the pH test, or you could buy kits at our store to do it. But in general, with lawns in western Pennsylvania, with your acidity levels being 0 and alkaline, the high end being 14, and a perfect lawn being in that 6.8 type range, you're looking at Western Pennsylvania soils tend to be more in the 6 range to begin with, the low 6s. And if you happen to have runoff from your neighbors that have big pine trees or oak trees or a lot of trees like that within your area, it also builds into the acidity. So you're never going to really have an alkaline lawn in Pennsylvania, so you probably can't hurt your lawn by liming it every spring.
Okay, so liming it in the spring would be maybe step number 1.
Correct.
Do we thatch in the spring, or should we have already, I didn't do it. Should we have already done
You
it?
can thatch in the spring where in the fall, you want to thatch and aerate in the same time at the fall, where that'll break up the soil and allow for the grass roots to grow again.
So you have the lawn company come in and they thatch and they pull up the little plugs, I guess, when they thatch.
That's aerating.
That's aerating, okay. And then we put down the lime. And then, are there certain grasses we should look for in the
Well,
southwestern
this
Pennsylvania?
time of year, if you're looking to create a fertilizer program, you're going to want to get down your equivalents of your Scott's first step, which is Scott's with Halts, which is a pre-emergence crabgrass preventer. You pretty much want to have that down between the beginning of March and no later than April 6th, because after that the crabgrass starts to grow and it won't be effective any longer.
You always wanted to lay everything down before the last thaw of the season, because then, and this is what my dad used to do, he used to say, then it'll sink into the ground with the water when the ground thaws. Is that true or not?
Well, again, it depends upon, it's more the timing for temperature than it is the groundwater and thawing as far as that goes.
Oh,
That's
okay.
why you need to get your halts on now before the crabgrass actively starts growing. It's why you're going to put your +2 on when the dandelions are in season from the beginning of May through the beginning of June, or middle of May through the beginning of June. And then you work with a summer fertilizer just to kind of boost the lawn in the summertime, and then have a fall fertilizer to help start the roots again if you're going to do this yourself.
When we talk about lawn maintenance, we talk about Scott's Turf Builder and the products that you mentioned. Are they environmentally safe, or do we have new lines of organic products? Or
I have a degree from Penn State, and I am just speaking for myself. I am not a big organic fan. They kind of work, but they're nowhere near as good as the chemical end of things. Again, with any chemicals that you yourself could buy from a local garden center, I wouldn't go take a bath in them, but they have been so regulated down that now your chemicals that you can spray for bugs and things have such a short half-life, meaning how long the plant stays active or the chemical stays active, that it's no longer anywhere near as toxic as it used to be, as similar chemicals were, say, through the 60s to early 80s, until they've got better regulated. Your organic chemicals, they kind of come more of a passing fad, and I just don't think they work quite as well.
One thing that I did notice is my daughter was on that sensitivity list because when she was a baby, we had a lawn company, and she blew up like a blowfish. It was terrible, and it was very frightening. And after that, when anybody treated in the neighborhood, we had to be notified so we could get her out of the neighborhood, and that's fine. We enjoyed going away for those days, but it made me very conscious of the fact that there are chemicals in these products. Now that she's not living at home anymore, it's not quite the same issue. But I do worry for other people, because we had no idea there was this problem until it happened.
But with that being said, though, too, and I'm just looking at this more from a scientific standpoint, everybody has their own chemical tolerances. There's people that very easily you could have peanuts put into a lawn from a natural standpoint, and if somebody has a peanut allergy, they're going to have their same scenario. So I'm not going to say that things never ever happen, but I've been around those things all my life, and again, I wouldn't go submerge myself and take a bath in them, but your average person isn't going to have any problems with them. And to your point, it can happen, but it could happen with food, it could happen with and that's just a specific allergy that somebody has to something. It's not to where it's a 1 out of 100 type of thing, or even, I think, a 1 out of 1,000.
Yeah, the list wasn't that long when I used to get the booklet. I just bring that up as a point for people to be aware of. But the one thing you just said that made a lot of sense is the entire time we did that, we had no grub control in our yard because we used all natural products to do this, and the grubs, It was awful.
Right.
It was terrible, and there didn't seem to be any natural product that was
Well, there was a
available.
product out called Milky Spore, but the problem is with Milky Spore, if it was going to work, and I've never seen it really last that long in somebody's yard to work, there was a 3-year gestation period that it took after you put it down for it to actually germinate to become effective in the soil to kill the grubs. In the meantime, if you put down any other chemicals along the way during this 3-year period, you would kill the Milky Spore. Thus, over that 3-year period, your lawn pretty much went to weeds and died off while you're trying to get that established to kill the grubs. So there's not a lot of short-term, really good organics that
We did a lot of weed pulling when my daughter, we pulled weeds all the time.
And the problem that you have even with pulling weeds, and I'll get back to shrubbery beds and things like that, if you tend to keep your mulch 3 inches thick, and it doesn't have to be 10 inches thick, but if you keep it 3 inches thick, and as you get closer to the plants, knock it down to about 1.5 inches to 2 inches, and you have your beds weed-free to begin with, you don't get any weeds. It's when you forget to mulch for 2 or 3 years and leave it alone and let the dirt get back down to the soil, get back down to the soil, the weeds will hit the soil and germinate. At that point, if you take it into consideration, a thistle, which is that dandelion with jaggers, it might have a 4-foot deep taproot. So if you pull that, all you're doing is breaking it off and it'll split and you end up getting 2 where you had 1. So at that point, you do still need to use some type of chemical to get rid of it. A lot of times, unfortunately, when I go out to people's houses, they may have a small area that's some really nice perennials that have just been inundated with weeds. And unfortunately, if you're going to bring that back into a nice looking shrubbery bed, you kind of still need to spray it with Roundup or a chemical to let it kill off. And Roundup works as a photosynthesis inhibitor. It doesn't actually poison the soil. It blocks the plant's Krebs cycle, getting back to 8th grade biology, so the plant basically over a short period of time starves to death. So then you can pull it out and it's dead root and all, so it doesn't come back. Where if you try to keep those perennials that you had, whose root systems are all combined together with the weed system, then you pull all the weeds out, you move the perennial, and then the weeds come back that were mixed in with the root system, and then you're right back to square one 3 weeks later.
We did notice, we bought a climbing vine because we thought it would be very pretty to go over an arbor. And that vine never went away. We still are to this day pulling that vine out of our flower beds, and it has the tenacity of the dandelions. So yeah, having somebody to come to give guidance, if I knew then what I know now, there would never have been an arbor. There would never have been any of those. Not ever.
Well, the key is with that too is knowing again what, as far as there are thousands of different perennials. If you go and look at our jobs that we do, I tend to use the same 25 to 30 perennials over and over again, which my staff is knowledgeable about, and we also have a larger variety than that. But I tend to like to use plants that aren't quite as invasive, and that if you maintain them water them for the first year, and maintain them once a year after that or so, just by trimming and such in the way of perennials and in shrubbery, you can keep things looking nice for 25 years before it would need to be redone again.
Yeah, so planting by fad is never a good idea, which is what that was. It was the arbor with all the pretty little pink flowers blooming on it that was just,
and that just becomes a knowledge-based thing. Again, most people have ideas of interior decorating and can pull things together. With plant things, what I see down in the garden centers, they tend to come down and like spend an hour and a half looking through 40 hollies that all kind of look the same at times, and then trying to find a place to bring it home and put it versus already having an idea how you're going to pull a concept together. And that's where we can really help out, because if you bring pictures in of your house from a couple different angles, our staff down in the store can help you design that. And they'll help you actually pull your landscape together and give you suggestions to what to plant in those areas.
You know, and one of the things we always see in these landscape things is when we go online, do it yourself, make sure you have the 18-inch plants here and the 12-inch plants here, and then you have to put in a 6-inch plant, and they need to be this color, this color. And it all just seems so regimented, and if you want a natural-looking landscape, is that really what you have to do?
It's not so much regimented to the point to where I always have a saying that you can create balance without creating symmetry. And you've kind of touched on yes, but no. I always say there's a 5-stage layering effect to landscaping, taking it back to the living room format, to where your focal point plants, which are your bigger plants that take the corners of the house out and are in the key bump out areas of the beds, become your wall units. Your background plants like variegated boxwoods, hollies, shrub roses, and alike, plants that are in the 18 to 24 inch range that are more foundational, staggered and such, become your couch and your lazy boy. The rock formations that you put in become your end tables and coffee tables. The foreground plants such as gold thread cypress and barberries and blue star junipers and alike that come towards the front and give color are your pictures and your lamps, and your perennials that you add in between the rock formations are the knickknacks that make the landscape homey. So there's truly a concept to what you're trying to do with it. It's not just randomly picking 6 plants and saying, I like the way these are shaped, and working them to go together. If it's done properly, all your colors and textures should blend together.
And I know why you're saying this, because I've done it wrong and I've done it right. So when you do it wrong, you have an idea and you think it's going to look so beautiful because that's what they said on HGTV.
Right.
And it just doesn't. It just, you know, there's too much red, too much yellow. And is there a wrong way to blend flowers?
There's not so much a right or wrong way. There's there is a right and wrong way. There's a wrong way and then there's a right way, to rephrase that, to where it's not so much the flowers as it is the texture of the plants and pulling all the different colors together. So in other words, if you were to use a deciduous tree, which is a tree that loses its leaves, as a focal point, 9.5 times out of 10, I'm going to have a smaller evergreen foreground there, so it comes together, and then you're working the perennials that are texturally going to go nice with the evergreens. If you have an evergreen focal point, then you're going to have a deciduous foreground, because you're having, again, plants that lose their leaves, which are going to give you more color, and then you're going to pull another different color scheme in with the perennials to blend with the foreground.
Okay. And is this layering by season also?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, so what you're trying to do with the perennials is create flowers that are blooming throughout the spring. An average flowering time of a perennial is somewhere between 3 to 5 weeks. And certain perennials, if you trim back the flowers, will bloom either throughout the summer or will have a spring and a fall bloom.
Okay. Okay. By the time fall comes, I'm so done with my gardens. I'm ripping everything out, because it just, sometimes they get, when you're planting, it tends to not look like you've put much there. So I tend to overplant.
Yes, that's the biggest mistake people make, is they don't make their beds big enough for the space to give the plants room to grow.
Well, no matter how big I make them, my husband always says there's too much in there, and he's always right. So what do you want to tell us about the flower beds and about designing flower beds?
The biggest thing within designing flower beds is that you look at the layout of your house. The flower bed should complement the layout of your house and your sidewalk, so it becomes a walk-through garden coming up to your house. It should lengthen the look of your house and then bring your eye back into the center of it. The plant material itself, again, looking at it from a furniture standpoint, should come together. So again, it is in key places towards drawing your eye out and drawing your eye back into the middle.
Okay. So really maybe getting some advice from an expert is a really good idea.
And it is. If you come down and bring some pictures, it's very simple to show you how to bring this together and really make a nice landscape.
I know I've concentrated on flower beds because it's my thing, and it's spring and I can't wait for it to be here and see my first daffodil. But you do vegetables too, right? You help deal with that. Do you recommend raised boxes in this area, or you prefer in-ground?
It's more what your soil's like. So if you amend your soil with peat moss, and actually if you kind of take some of your waste products, anything from eggshells to coffee grinds and so forth, and spade them into your garden over the years, and things like leftover lettuce out and things like that, that actually helps promote the betterment of soils. A raised garden you can do and put in peat moss and vermiculite and stuff to have better soil to start off with, and then just fertilize.
You know what? That just made me think of something, because we've done that, and the leftover fertilizer my husband put in the flower beds, mushroom manure. I don't think I'll ever use that again.
Yes.
I literally had mushrooms everywhere. I mean, it really is mushroom manure.
I have a saying that mulch impedes weeds and mushroom manure breeds weeds. So the only real use for mushroom manure is in areas for annuals, or initially if you have a totally flat yard and you're reseeding your areas and overseeding, to overseed your lawn with. And then, again, another 12 weeks out after the lawn's established, you'll come back in with a weed killer and kill off any of the weeds that would be produced from the manure.
That took years to get rid of those too. It's been one experiment after another with our gardens. And then, of course, we have the deer. And keeping them away from our vegetables and some of our flowers, not our daffodils, but our crocuses. Oh, our crocuses, they're gone. Our tulips, those types of things. I didn't even plant any last year because they literally ripped them up by the bulbs. At one point, we would spray with peppermint or garlic. And one time I went and bought from Sam's Club a giant bottle of red crushed peppers and spread it out. And it seems to work for a while, but...
Well, that's the thing with deer. Number one, we have way too many deer in the area within the entire South Hills community. You can go from people from Bethel, from Brookside Lumber over to the cemetery by Lyons and up into the Glens and into the backside of Logan Road, and it's 7 o'clock at night in the fall, and I bet you will see 200 deer within a square mile, which is about 90% more than what you should have in an area like that. So they have just become a nuisance. To help prevent that, based on what you said, it's just like anything else in life. It's repeating it. There's a product called Liquid Fence. There's a product called Bob-X. If you spray them one time, the deer population is so big in the area that the deer that live right in your backyard are going to learn within 2 days that doesn't taste well. But the deer that are going to walk from 5 blocks away might come by on day 5, and then they are hungry and they decide, okay, I'll put up with the taste of this a little bit because it's now worn off somewhat, and then they'll start to chomp on it. By day 21, because most of these chemicals tell you on the package to spray every 3 weeks, that every deer that might come from a quarter mile away is still going to gnaw on that, and you're going to go, Evan, this stuff doesn't work, and you quit using it. Whenever I do jobs, I tell people for the first 2 weeks to spray these repellents once every 2 days on the plants that they are going to bother. Again, you try to stay away from the plants that they absolutely love, like tulips and things like that. I don't even carry anymore. The plants that they'll bother some, if you spray them once every 2 days for 2 weeks, and then spray it once a week for another 3 weeks, and then you can start spraying it once every 3 weeks, you'll teach all the deer that may possibly go through there that the stuff tastes bad, because a deer actually has a square mile range. You'll always have the deer come out into the neighborhood that just want to eat, that start in your front yard every day, and you can teach those relatively quickly that it tastes bad, but it's the rest of them that are coming through because of the population that we have now that we have to work on getting rid of. Another trick that works, if you have some woods along your backyard, if you want to train the deer to go towards your neighbors more than yourself, and they do leave the woods into your yard, if you go get a thick gauge fishing line and start it off at 18 inches, put one at 2 feet and one at 3 feet, just as if we would walk into a spider web at night, how your first reaction is to pull back. When a deer's walking through there and they touch that at night, they kind of get spooked and they'll go kind of start their path in a different direction.
Oh, well, I wouldn't do that to my neighbors because I really do like my neighbors. But I have a creek and a forest in my backyard, so I have a lot of deer. And that's kind of like a Pavlov's theory thing for the deer there. Yeah, repeat it enough and they're going to learn.
Right.
Don't come back.
Right.
All right. Anything else you want to tell us, because we're going to be running out of time here in a minute?
I just really appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you, and it's been fun.
It has been fun. And if I invited you back in the fall, you think I could get you to come?
For sure.
Oh, that would be great. We would love to talk about getting our fall yard ready, getting ready for Christmas tree, right kind of Christmas tree to buy, wrong kind. My husband and I actually have this argument every year about Christmas trees, and I know you sell Christmas trees. We cannot agree on the right kind of tree to buy. We really can't.
Sometimes I think a Christmas tree purchase is the second biggest decision you make in consideration of your house.
I think you're right. Well, Evan, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
I want to thank all of you for joining us at home in Bethel Park, and we will see you next time.